This is a film of our sailing trip along the English south coast, from Port Hamble in the Solent, west to Fowey and then back to Plymouth. We were on board Jandina, a Halberg Rassie 37, along with its owner Andrew Morgan. A really wonderful boat.
Lines do, I don't know. I've never worked it out.
Summer still hadn't arrived as we left the marina and out into the Solent. We tracked west towards Hurst Castle, taking the North Channel out, and with the tide with us we still sampled some of the overfalls, which can be treacherous, as we headed towards Poole in Dorset. As we entered Poole, we passed some of the houses of the rich and famous at Sandbanks. After a quiet night at Poole Harbour, we left, admiring the luxury sailing yacht, far nicer than the Sunseeker powerboats that are built in the harbour. We headed out past Studland Bay and Old Harry Rocks, across Swanage Bay, and then Anvil Point Lighthouse. And as we passed St Alden's Head, we again experienced overfalls as we crossed into Weymouth Bay. And in Weymouth Bay, we passed some COVID-stricken P&O cruise liners, waiting till they can take passengers again. We passed the breakwater into the harbour at the lovely town of Weymouth.
Bravo 6, opposite the lifeboat station, outboard of the vessel called Bliss. Vessel Bliss, over.
The next morning we chose our time carefully as we headed out and past Portland Bill, which at the wrong times and the wrong winds can be treacherous. We had a lovely sail across Lyme Bay as we headed to Lyme Regis, where we spent a rather uncomfortable night on a mooring buoy outside the harbour. The next morning we had an early start as we headed off towards Dartmouth. We motored through Dartmouth, up the Dart River, to a lovely anchorage at the little village of Ditcham.
And that's a railway station with no train. This is the railway station.
We took the Ditcham ferry into town, into Dartmouth, to have a look at this delightful historic town. The next morning we left Dartmouth
Kind of noisy.
into the fog and mist as we headed south towards Salcombe. And just as we anchored at Salcombe, summer arrived. The next morning was lovely as we headed out of Salcombe towards the Elm River. We took our time to give us enough tide to get over the bar at the entrance to the Elm. But when we were through, we found a lovely, lovely spot. Spent a peaceful night along with lots of other boats. next morning, we carefully made our way out to the channel, which was well marked by red buoys. And we used the buoys and the transit lines to make sure we kept well away from the sandbar across the front. And a bearing to the church gave us our exit point, heading out into the open. And in the distance, 10 miles away, we could see the Eddystone Lighthouse. We then had a light wind sail down the coast, heading for another delightful harbour town, this time Fowey. With Fowey on the west bank and Poole on the east bank, it made a delightful setting. Time for a dinghy ride up the River Fowey to collect gas, and then to take us across to the town quay to have fish and chips.
You've got a boat coming up here.
The next morning, Andrew brought us across in the dinghy to Poole, where we started off for a walk along the coastal path. A lovely hot summer's day. We had a walk all the way down to the lovely Atlantic beach, and we were soon treated to a display by two army Chinooks returning from the G7 conference that had just been held in Cornwall. Next morning, a gentle downwind sail with the Jenica as we headed back east to Plymouth.
I didn't realise the coast was so rocky. I thought it was sandy. It looks pretty rocky where they are. Anchorage.
We entered Plymouth Sound the same time as the ferry Pont-Aven, arriving from Spain. Last time we were in Plymouth Sound was on that boat. We entered Sutton Harbour through the lock, along with a few other boats. Before our journey's end on a pontoon at Sutton Marina, the end of a really great trip.